It's not uncommon for people with relatively normal jobs to own boats, horses, multiple ATVs, a detached house, and be taking many vacations per year. Hi, my name is Chris Melnick, and I'm a realtor in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Today, I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of moving from Vancouver, BC to Halifax, Nova Scotia. And if you didn't know, I actually grew up in Vancouver and lived there for 24 years and still have many friends and family there to give me updates. And as a ploy to keep your attention, I'm going to order this list in ascending order. So the biggest pro and the biggest con will be at the end of the video. Con number 6, few higher end options for retailers. Now, this applies to food, clothing, and even services really. But because Nova Scotia is smaller, it doesn't really have the population to sustain more expensive options. Because of that, if you're looking to buy a $50,000 swim spa or $10,000 coat, you'll have to buy it online or get it from a bigger city. Now, fortunately, this isn't an issue for most people, but I've had clients who are a bit peeved when they find this out. Pro number 6, better beaches. If you like the beach to walk, tan, swim, or surf, come to Nova Scotia. The amount of amazing beaches is just staggering, especially if you grew up in North Van like me and were used to beaches with more pebbles than sand. That's one thing I noticed here that I didn't really hear emphasized that much. Parking and amenities are a different story, but once you start exploring these beaches, you'd think you were in a different country. Con number 5, fewer and worse nature trails. The Greater Vancouver area has some amazing trails with lots of elevation changes. Now, I've done pretty much every one I could find within an hour of the city. And even though Halifax has a lot of forest and coastline and even trails, it doesn't have nearly as many well-marked trail systems as Vancouver. When you start to read the reviews of trails here, you'll quickly discover that you really have to follow a GPS most of the time or you will get lost. Pro number 5, everything is closer. The Halifax area is extremely well located if you love to travel. You're basically halfway to Europe already compared to if you started from Vancouver. Toronto is a 2-hour flight, New York City is a 2-hour flight, and Frankfurt is under 7 hours. Also, even the Halifax area is close to nearby attractions. Want to go to visit wineries? It's about an hour plus drive, compared to say 4 or 5 hours for the Okanagan. And sites like this are about an hour and a half away. You can also get into relatively rural areas within about 30 minutes in most directions from the city. Con number 4, less amenities. The Greater Vancouver area has something like 8 Walmarts. We have 4. Vancouver also seemingly has an endless supply of trendy new restaurants, whereas you wouldn't quite have that many here. For most people, the amenities are more than adequate though. It's really only an issue if you're always going out to new restaurants or different specific services. Pro number 4, better weather. This was a key reason that I knew I had to leave Vancouver. It just rained too much and I didn't see the sun nearly as much as I wanted to. It was a Halloween tradition to come home cold and damp. But in Halifax, you get sun on most days. Now, it does rain here, but it basically comes in torrential bursts, which is great because once it's finished, you don't have rain for quite some time. Weirdly enough, many people here don't even own umbrellas. Also, the temperatures are extremely similar here, but the nice season here goes to mid-November, so Halloweens are not cold and damp. The last one was actually too warm. Con number 3, less thought out communities. This is something that confused me from the start of being here. The way things like streets, businesses, parking, amenities, and attractions are developed are just less well thought out. For example, in Vancouver, pretty much around every beach, you'll have decent bathrooms, maybe a shower, parking, and it may be close to amenities like stores and restaurants, maybe ice cream shops. But here, since it was first developed 300 plus years ago, none of that was planned for. So you can have amazing beaches with effectively no parking and no amenities. You also have a lot of lakes with either limited or no public access. Pro number 3, less traffic. This is huge and could be reason alone to leave Vancouver for Halifax. I still have flashbacks of moving 100 feet in 40 minutes trying to get on the second narrow bridge in Vancouver. There is traffic here, but it's nowhere near as bad. If I were to try to quantify it, it's probably like 1/10. And you don't have to take bridges here. You can drive around if you really need to. In heavy traffic here on highways, you're probably still going to be rolling at 30 to 40 kilometers an hour. Whereas in Vancouver, it would be a dead stop, with people being sneaky and jumping the line at on-ramps. Con number 2, worse transit. There's no SkyTrain, subway, or light rail system in Nova Scotia. The bus system can also be fairly unreliable. In my mind, having a car is a must in Nova Scotia. If you're looking to get to the amazing beaches or more rural sites, it's really the only option. If you live in suburban or urban areas, the transit is still functional. Like, I have a neighbor who's been taking the bus to work every day for years. But to rely on it for all of your needs is a very different story. Pro number 2, similar incomes. This may come as a surprise to a lot of people because most people don't look up statistics themselves. But median income levels are very similar. Here are some of the official numbers from the last census. I'll post links in the description. Halifax's median after-tax household income is $69,500. In Vancouver, it's $79,500. That's only 13% less in Halifax than Vancouver. I'm not going to say that $10,000 is insignificant, but when you look at the price difference in housing, making $10,000 less a year is nothing in comparison. That's probably a lot different than what you were expecting, but it's the truth. A lot of people are living life extremely well here. And con number 1, worse healthcare. This is probably the biggest issue I hear anyone have with Nova Scotia. Now, I'm well aware that most of the country has what most would deem as inadequate healthcare, but Nova Scotia takes it to a different level. It's not uncommon to wait 10 plus hours in the ER for a non-life-threatening injury. Now, the general advice is just not to get sick. If you need an operation for something like a hernia, it's about a year to see the specialist to confirm, in a few minutes mind you, that it is a hernia, and then another 2-year wait to get the operation. Many people with means just fly to other provinces and countries and pay for the operations at private clinics. And pro number 1, it's cheaper to buy a property and live the life. Now, this is easily the number 1 reason people come here. They grew up with the idea that they'd buy a house with a yard, start a family, and enjoy life. And that's simply not an option for younger people in Vancouver, unless they're getting a 7-figure inheritance from someone. It absolutely is still achievable in Halifax. Just look at these average prices for detached homes. Then remember that you have to pay the mortgage with your after-tax money. And remember that incomes are similar. It's a no-brainer. It's not uncommon for people with relatively normal jobs to own boats, horses, multiple ATVs, a detached house, and be taking many vacations per year. In conclusion, I'd say that if you're a younger person with marketable skills who wants to live the suburban family dream, want nice weather, and as easygoing a life as possible, Halifax is the best place to live in the country. That's why I'm here. Also, if you're retired and are looking to cash out of Vancouver and can afford alternative healthcare, Halifax is a great place to live. This is probably why it's those 2 specific groups that I see moving here in droves. If you'd like help buying or selling, or if you're thinking of moving here, feel free to contact me. My contact information is in the description. Goodbye.